Hello, everybody, and welcome to the KeenGamer podcast, where we talk about games and that. I'm Max, and I'm joined here in the virtual studio this fine, beautiful day by Ben. How's it going, Ben?
Not bad. It's another rainy, cold day in London, England. I love it.
Uh, oh, I feel a bit bad being in lovely sunny Valencia today then. But anyway, it's not about who has the better weather. It's about video games and all that good stuff. We've got a wonderful little episode for you all today. We will be moving on to the main topic of the dreaded backlog in a little bit. The huge mammoth collection of games gathering dust in the Steam library and on all of our shelves that we're definitely going to get around to someday. Promise, for realsies. But until then, we are going to talk a little bit about the news. We've got a few juicy little stories for you all today. First up, of course, we could not have an episode this week without talking about the Epic Games versus Apple lawsuit, which finally went to virtual court on Monday. The trial has begun, and it's begun in a way that I think we can all agree is exactly as chaotic as everybody probably expected it to be. There's been all sorts of stuff that's come out in the legal proceedings. So it should be no surprise to us at all that once the trial started, they opened up a public phone line, virtual phone line that people could call into and witness the proceedings. And of course, it was immediately flooded by over 200 people. And of course, it turns out that they couldn't figure out or had forgotten to mute all of these people calling in. So they were flooded by loads of people just joining the line and screaming "Free Fortnite," which of course is the hashtag and war cry that Epic Games coined at the beginning of this whole fiasco, and others. It says here in this wonderful article on Eurogamer from Emma Kent. We've got others who pleaded with the judge to allow the game back onto mobile devices, and some who simply used it to chat or play Travis Scott songs. Travis Scott, of course, recently performed a virtual gig in Fortnite. And others took the opportunity to plug their YouTube channels. You know, got to respect the game. You know, shoot their shot.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
You've been following along with all of this. I'm guessing, Ben. What's your take on everything?
Firstly, it's just I think I love the idea that it's like we've got this trial over this video game, kind of heavily related to this video game called Fortnite. That's mostly played by young kids or teenagers, and you know what we could do? We could open up this virtual phone line for, if somebody just wants to be involved. And then there's somebody in the background like, do we know how to mute everybody? It's like, oh, we'll work it out. It's fine.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. What's the worst that could happen?
And then they all come in. There's a great line in Emily Kent's article that we read about it, which is, I would suck all of you to get Fortnite Mobile back, which I'm just like, I just
It's exactly what you would expect if you knew the first thing about Fortnite and its client base, right? It's that particular mix of immaturity and desperation to get their game back on their favored platform, I guess. They approach it
desperation that was like, it was stoked by Epic so strongly with the 19 ever made. Even somebody who had a YouTube channel when they're 11 thinks that video is more embarrassing than the one they made. Like it's just the worst thing ever. And they basically said to these teenagers who, like, no judgment, like they're kids.
Yeah,
they're doing their thing, and they've been incited by this. What is it, billion? Oh yeah, it's $1 billion corporation.
Oh yeah, multiple billions.
Just be like, give me my toy. I don't know. I just think it's think it's really gross. I think no matter what moral standing Epic has in terms of pay cuts and all that nonsense goes out the window when they act like that. And even though I kind of agree with their point of view, they just the 1980 Fortnite thing is just the worst thing I've ever seen. So it just makes me like them less. But
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's almost certainly not like, Tim Sweeney was like, hey, all Fortnite fans call into this trial or anything. But like, they don't need to at this point. As you say, like they've riled up all of these people who are like rabidly huge fans of Fortnite and Epic. They've portrayed themselves as like the lone crusaders against these big corporations, and they're kind of doing everything they can to fight back against the man and encouraging others to do it, you know, in the general sense. But then that translates to moments like this where people will hone it down into the specific sense of calling into a legal trial and asking everybody to suck them off to bring Fortnite back. You know,
wait,
like,
I think it was the other way around, but you know what I mean.
Yes, of course.
It wasn't like they were doing them a favor.
I want both Fortnite and all this other stuff as well.
But no, it's yeah, I think I've just this. Oh, I have one thing to say about it, actually. I think it was Imran Khan writing for Fanbyte did this great line where he wrote about how, you know, Epic have put themselves as the David in the David v Goliath battle, and then just had like a little editor's note that was like, Epic is worth however many billions. By the way. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like these are just like two big corporate machines that don't actually care about customers. Like, they don't need to. Like if they had to choose between money and customers, like they choose money. Like obviously there's decisions that can make them lose money in the long term because they'd look bad, but in general, like, I don't know, and also like 200 people calling in, that's not that many. Like, considering online and could be stirred up into like a group via Reddit or whatever, or like just a Facebook group chat, like you get like everybody in. I don't know what kids use, but you know what I mean. Like 200 is just like a drop in the ocean. Probably. If somebody made a TikTok that was like, no, if it was like a TikTok, instead of Storm Area 41, it was call into the, you know, the Epic trial and tell them to free Fortnite and also plug your YouTube. Like,
naturally. Shoot your shot.
But like, other than that, like this whole thing's been a mess as well. Like with all the other stuff that's come out, like we've heard about the behind the scenes of the way companies work, like with Xbox reviewing The Last of Us internally, and just being able to read what they thought about it was really interesting. We also heard about how PlayStation asked for like a payment to do crossplay, which is really shitty considering no other platform does that. And all these other things that are coming out.
That's like the dictionary definition of a company just kind of seeing an opening to quietly make an extra buck, and just like, don't tell anyone. We know how everybody else is doing it, but like, maybe let's just charge for it. Why not? It's skeezy.
Yeah. Well, I think in the document it said something about how well, it was kind of talking about the discussions, and basically I think the whole point is that PlayStation is the market leader and they gain nothing from doing crossplay. If anything, they'll lose money because somebody can, like cross progression, because somebody could buy on Xbox but play on PlayStation. Don't know how often that's going to happen, or somebody could buy on iOS and play on PlayStation. It's probably more likely of a thing. So like that is I understand the business money standpoint of it. But it's just like, the fact they were able to keep that secret is the only reason they look so good about it.
Yeah.
Because they were the only holdouts. But if we knew that they were also the only people expecting payment, imagine if you're an indie dev, you just made a battle royale. Like there are indie devs that make battle royales and you want to get crossplay and then you're having to pay them for it. Like, off. That's stupid. And I don't know. I think when the industry is pushing that way to be like, well, we're the market leader, give us some money. Don't like it.
Like, I mean, I know it's naive to not expect massive companies to throw their weight around like that and do things to make more money just because they can. But like, I wish they wouldn't. because you're right. Like there are like, it's not just the consumers who suffer from this. Like crossplay is a massive selling point for any game really that has like a multiplayer component. And you know, it's one thing for a massive publisher to be like, oh, I guess we have to like pay this extra fee on top in order to get crossplay. Fine, I guess. But if you're an indie developer, like if you're operating on a shoestring budget, you probably don't have that kind of extra cash just sitting around in order to commit to what could be a very helpful and lucrative part of your game. And that's basically like, well, it's financial gatekeeping of a kind, isn't it? It's
well, literally, and if you're an indie dev, you're making a small game, crossplay can save that game. It can save the matchmaking. It can make sure people find games because there's be a larger pool of people to play with. So to see all these things come out is very entertaining. I'm glad that it's happening. Yeah. And like, and there was a really funny quote from the judge that was basically like, he asked for the documents to be sealed after the day or whatever. And it was like, well, like, there's no point in sealing them now. I guess the genie's out the bottle because just everybody's been reporting on it. And I don't get how this works, but I also just like the mess of it all. The absolute trash fire of just really like, we're just hearing all of this.
Yeah, it really feels like one of those, like, everything that could have gone wrong with it kind of did kind of situations, which is just kind of hilarious. But yeah, like as you said before, like it's kind of a disingenuous framing, isn't it? Because it's not David and Goliath. It's like Goliath and slightly smaller Goliath. That's what we're looking at. And there are several other Goliaths also involved on the periphery of the whole thing as well. It's just like a big club full of Goliaths who are just fighting together and trampling all over other people.
It's a kaiju film. It's
a
Godzilla
kaiju
versus
film.
King Kong. That's all it is.
We've got it. Apple
Who's
versus
Ultraman?
Is
Ultraman in there somewhere?
Maybe in the sequel.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Epic v Apple trial will continue apace. It's still got several more weeks in it, I would imagine. We'll be keeping track of everything that's going on, and you can check out the news updates over on KeenGamer.com if you're interested.
You know what? It's really making me want to play Ace Attorney. So that's all I have to say about it.
Those games are so good. I would highly recommend them if you haven't. But speaking of other games that are extremely good, new Pokemon Snap released recently. Also, Returnal. Two very different games, two very new games, two very well-selling games. But one selling better than the other. That brings us on to this next news story. So yeah, I've got another Eurogamer article here. New Pokemon Snap. The specific numbers have probably changed slightly because I brought this up yesterday, I think. But new Pokemon Snap has sold nearly 3 times the boxed copies, at least, of Returnal. I'm not sure how digital copies factor into it. But I mean, 1, that's huge. 2, Returnal, I'm pretty sure sold a healthy chunk of copies anyway, so that's probably still okay. But like, that's loads for like a spin-off Pokemon game from, well, a kind of spiritual sequel to a weird Pokemon photography game from 20 years ago that sold all right. You know, it's huge. And I confess I haven't gotten around to playing it yet, although it's definitely on my list. We'll get to that when we get to the backlog bit of the episode. But it looks great. It's been getting loads of very positive reviews, and good for Pokemon. You know, have you managed to play it, Ben, or Returnal? I haven't got a PS5.
So that's sad. And I do have a Switch Backlog section. We're going to talk about how I have 230, 240 Switch games because I'm the biggest idiot in the world.
Oh my God.
But I'm not that interested in it. Because I don't have any nostalgia for the original.
Okay.
And I'm not the biggest Pokemon guy. I've played probably 3 or 4 of the mainline entries, enjoyed them. But I've never got that kind of, really into like the gens and the monsters, just the monsters themselves. Like haven't, as a brand or a vibe, it's not engaged me in a way that like, I don't know, any other game that I play that I'm obsessed with, where I think about it outside of it. I enjoy it and then I forget about it. So
yeah,
I've not managed to play it, but I think these sales. There's 7.8 million PlayStation 5s in the wild.
yeah.
And this is only UK, so I don't know how many of that is in UK. And then the Switch obviously has like 45, 50, no, I don't know how many, like 50, 60 million units out there. So, it's harder to compare, but one thing that's clear is the Switch just sells software because the top 6 of the top 10 are Switch exclusives. So like people just buy games on that console. And they're still buying games. Number 3, I think, was Super Mario 3D Land.
Yeah, Bowser's Fury.
3D World. New exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a recent one, but it's not a new one.
Yeah.
It's like these things keep selling.
Yeah, and I mean, Animal Crossing is still in there at number 5, and that released last March, like over a year ago. It's crazy. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I remember the original Pokemon Snap back in the day, back when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and it was fun. Like it was, just weirdly unique. Like I can't think of another game like it. Like there are other games that are on rails and some that like incorporate photography elements and obviously other Pokemon games, but this like weird mishmash of all these things that don't sound like they should go together but actually all make a very pleasant experience. It was a good game. It wasn't perfect or anything, but when I heard that they were finally releasing a sequel, because they announced it last summer, I believe, I was like, "Whoa, that's a game that I literally haven't really thought about in 20 years." But I'm genuinely quite excited that it's coming out, and it seems to have generally lived up to expectations, which is cool. But I think the question of the differences specifically between these 2 titles in their sales figures, it feels to me like it's the first step on a broader discussion about the price point for games, which I've seen elsewhere in games media recently as well, because Returnal is one of the first, if not the first, like pure only PS5 titles, and it's retailing in the UK at least for £70, which is quite a lot of money.
It's the same as Demon's Souls. I think I'm pretty sure Demon's Souls is the only other one.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You're right. Whereas Pokemon Snap is $44.99 according to Eurogamer, and I don't really know how I feel broadly about it, because I totally understand that it takes so much money to make even one game, and you need to make that back, otherwise you're not going to be able to make more games. But £70 for one game just seems like a lot, and I don't want to gauge the kind of value of a game by how much time you get out of it, because I know for a fact that there are loads of really amazing short games out there. But at the same time, like I've been seeing a lot of people saying that they got through Returnal in like somewhere between like 10 and 15 hours or something. And I'm not sure how much kind of extra replayability there is to it beyond that. There may be some, but it feels it just feels like a lot of money, and it feels exclusive, like it's forcing people who can't afford to buy a new game at that price just out of the hobby altogether, or at the very least to like other consoles. Like there are lots of cheaper PC games, for example, and as I just said, like a lot of Switch games are cheaper as well, even if they rarely, if ever, go on sale or anything. But yeah, I think it's an interesting question to be asking ourselves as we kind of move into this next phase of the industry with the new generation of consoles and things like that. What are your thoughts, if any, on the matter?
I've quite a few. Firstly, I much prefer this discussion to the indie discussion. There's often discussion about indie games being too expensive, and those
Yeah.
can just shush. Like
Yeah.
some people are like, I won't spend £20 on an indie game, or I won't spend $25 on an indie game. Well, just shush. Like it's up. Like you don't know what the work goes in there. Like so like obviously that applies to this discussion if you don't know the work that goes in. But Housemarque's a PlayStation studio. Like the people who did Demon's Souls are a PlayStation studio. PlayStation is a megaton brand. They make a profit. Like they make money, and their studios make money. So the discussion there of like, well, games getting more expensive. It's less on your games. I don't know. I think the excuses for putting up to £70. Yeah, I think is it 70 or $80? I think it's $70 as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, like they match the numbers, but not the actual value. I wonder if there was like a lot of market research that went into that about like how much the average UK consumer versus the average American consumer would be willing to pay, or if they were just like, I can't be bothered. Just change the currency sign.
Well, yeah, because our games are meant to be £50, like on average. And I remember when Zelda came out, Breath of the Wild, it was £60, and everyone was like, "That's weird. Why is it £60?" And that was only digital. And as soon as you went into a store, you could see it for 50 or 55.
Yeah,
but like so, video games in England have kind of been around 50 quid. But yeah, I think raising it and kind of at a time when there's not many new, fresh, exciting next gen games to play on, your new game's not going to go on sale for 3 months minimum. Bet probably more. It's like, I don't know, if I was a teenager right now and I didn't I worked summers to get enough money to buy a PS4, and I was sat after COVID or still in like the midst of a lockdown or something, and just couldn't earn enough money to buy a new game, I'd just be like so furious. Like, especially after I spent so much on the console. I'm sure like it's hard to like really gauge whether it's fair or unfair. I don't know where the discussion is there. It's just it feels like the industry isn't moving there because nobody else is doing it apart from PlayStation. So it just feels like a kind of, we're the leader, we're going to push the industry that way. And I don't think Xbox and Nintendo will exactly follow. I think Nintendo will stick with the price point they have and just never put the things on sale like they always have. And I think Xbox they just love making people play games, so they get all that stuff. I just feel like there's a divergence here.
It feels like Xbox, if anything, is going pretty hard in the opposite direction with things like Game Pass and games with gold and stuff, where they seem to be focusing a lot more on like, we're going to give you so much bang for your buck, like you won't even believe how much bang you'll be getting for your buck, rather than, I mean, we may see them put individual game prices up in the future, maybe, who's to say, but for now, at least at this particular moment in the zeitgeist, like they seem to be really focusing on that side of things, like providing quantity and quality at an affordable price for more people, which seems the
to be fair
inverse of Sony's approach.
And to be fair to Sony, or PS Plus games are always a lot better than Xbox games with gold. always much better. So like they do understand what that service is for.
Yeah.
And they do like offer value in it. I think Xbox Games with Gold has never really offered that value. But then on the flip side, Xbox Game Pass is such a good value proposition.
Yeah.
Whereas PS Now isn't. So like they're out of the 4 services, 2 on each side, they're kind of like opposites.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, like, I do wonder if we'll see Sony walk this back slightly in the future, or if they're just going to commit to it. Because I feel like there was a similar discussion that came out around the time that the PS3 was launched. Because you probably remember, like, it was very expensive for the time, and that was like a massive sticking point that everybody kept returning to. And they stuck to their guns for a while, but they did eventually bring the price down a little, if memory serves. And I wonder
they took out the backwards compatibility, and then knocked off $100.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, I guess they can't really take something out of a game or the upcoming games. But I'd be interested to see if they start to walk it back and try and tempt more people aboard with fractionally cheaper games than they otherwise would.
The only way that would happen is that it impacts sales dramatically.
Yeah.
And they actually argument of at £60 will make more money than at £70 because people will buy it on day one. Whereas, which is when devs make all their money, because everything after that, if you're a year out of playing a game, whoever pays full price, you just wait for the sale if it's not already on sale. Like, so there might be an argument there, but I don't think that's going to happen. People are ravenous for games right now with COVID.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
Especially people who are on next gen consoles. So I mean, we'll see, but I'm pretty sure it's a thing for their big budget AAA mainline exclusives.
Yeah. Well, we will see how that all turns out. Now, our final piece of news that fairly neatly brings us on to, speaking of Microsoft and its approach to its games and providing them, and in fact backwards compatibility, which we even mentioned briefly. We've got a lovely little article from Kotaku here from Zach Zweisen. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Very cool name, lots of Zs, big fan. About the huge truckload of new games that just got the FPS boost and performance improvement treatment on the new Xbox Series consoles. We've got over 70 new games here that can now be run at 60 FPS or even more than that, bringing the grand total to 94 games. Wow, that you can play on either of the Xbox Series consoles at a far better and far prettier.
Correction.
Correct away.
Not all of. So some of them can't be played on the Series S. There's a good chart on the Xbox website all about this. A lot of them can. I think it probably is the majority, but there are a few exceptions like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, like the newer games. I think they're either 30 FPS or like you can drop your your quality to get higher frames maybe.
Right.
But most of them are, they can be 60 FPS on both consoles.
Good catch. But yeah, this is very cool. And it kind of speaks to me quite a lot about Microsoft's approach to backwards compatibility, as we were briefly talking about. And it seems to be broadly in favor of it, which is great because like the two other big names, Nintendo and Sony, recent behaviors seem to imply that they don't really care as much about it and about preserving a lot of older games. There's another discussion that's kind of been raised in the community over the last year or two a lot. I mean,
Mm.
for a long while now, but particularly in the last year or two with the advent of the new generation of consoles and stuff like that. And I think it's really cool that Microsoft is committing to bringing a lot of these older games forward. Like a lot of them are pretty old. Like they'll be the PS4 versions, but things like the Assassin's Creed Ezio collection, those obviously originally came out years and years ago. We've got Dying Light in there, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, and Yakuza 6, everybody's favorite paltry troublemaking game, Untitled Goose Game. God, I had so much fun with that. Great.
That's
But
120 FPS as well. That
120
goose is gonna honk
FPS
smoothly.
Oh,
It's crazy.
smoothest honks you could ever ask for. It's going to be a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think it's a really cool thing. It's like, I mean, I'm sure at the appropriate level that these decisions were made, like it's probably all about the cash. They're like, we want to make sure that people are still buying not just new games but old games as well. But it's cool. Like it's such an interesting discussion within the medium, I think, because what is broadly a kind of very digital medium, the question of how you look after older pieces of media in it is a very difficult one, and it's great to see one company for whatever reason take some steps to try and help with that.
Yeah, I mean, I have quite just a lot of love for what Microsoft are doing right now because, like you said, people make decisions for money. I don't think this is actually about getting people to buy older games. I think it's about, in the long run, getting people to buy Xboxes.
Yeah.
Microsoft needs to look good and needs to get the market share. But to change into a pro-consumer company, you can't suddenly change back if you are more successful. That would, ruin a lot of goodwill. So hopefully it's a change for the long term, if not forever. But I have a Series X, and I was playing Dishonored 2, which got the FPS boost maybe a month ago. It's just amazing, and it's like this is one of the best things a next gen console can do if you care about old games at all. And these aren't even that old. Like Battlefield 5, it's not it's not an old game. Like the coolest thing is like it's all free, assuming you have the game already, which a lot of these games people will already own. It's all on the hardware level, so the devs aren't doing anything. The Xbox is just doing it, and whatever the backwards compatible team is doing is making sure. So like, it's just Microsoft being like, let's work some magic. It is exactly that, and it's just happened so suddenly. I think they announced 4 games, and then they announced a load of Bethesda games, and then they announced 74
Boom!
or 70 something titles, and I was just like, what's going on? And it's just really, really nice to see, especially like I'm currently playing through all the Yakuza games. So when I get to Yakuza 6, it's going to be like the best possible way to play that game.
Nice.
Which is just kind of nice to know. Like, I don't know, there's some magic in like, especially as like people like us who will play old games to learn about them. Anybody who cares about old games, this is so cool because they're being made better.
Yeah. Like, I mean, as in any artistic medium, I think there are always going to be the purists who are like, oh, it was better when it was running at 8 frames per second. I can't believe you like this smooth nonsense. But like it's good for us, as you say, because it makes playing through older games, if we need to, a lot more tolerable, I think. But also just like keeping a lot of these older games in the kind of cultural discussion and stuff means that as time goes on, like you potentially get a whole new generation of people who is now able to play them, and they won't like start playing them and be like, oh no, this looks so much worse than the games I'm used to. I'm not really enjoying it, and I don't want to do this. Like, it will look and play well, and then you can share these wonderful and fun experiences with brand new people, which I think is great.
we've already seen this happen. Like, well, I've seen this happen on Twitter, on podcasts. People talking about Dishonored 1. Just people who've not played it before playing it. People who've played it 15 times playing it again.
Yeah.
And that's just now stuff that I get to hear about. And those people are talking to people who haven't played it. And it's like, the people who made Machine Games didn't do anything. And suddenly their game is being talked about again. And if they ever do a Dishonored 3, there's more people who will know what that name means. And it's just, that's all because Microsoft has a dedicated team to being like, let's make old games work. You know what we want people to be able to do on their £500 console? Play Fusion Frenzy or play Black. You know what I mean? Like, who's thinking like that? No one. And it's great. Like, I love Nintendo to bits, but the way they're handling their old games is so sad. Because it's just eked out, and then suddenly, bam! It's like, well, actually, this one's a collection, and it's £60, and we've done nothing else to it, but we just want to charge you for this one. Yeah, and especially because kind of buffet menu of just like nothing's overpriced, nothing's that especially cheap, but it's not expensive. Buy what you need, buy what you want to remember. Like, that was an amazing thing to have, and then obviously PlayStation's at the bottom with kind of being dragged by their heels into the kind of backwards compatible conversation. So
and
it's nice to see them lead the way.
And the recent news from Sony of that, their initial plans to close the Vita, PSP, and PS3 stores, and then they walked back on the PS3 and the PSP. Was it, or was it the Vita that's staying open?
No.
Yeah. Like, that in itself, like the PS3 isn't that old of a console to start like explicitly restricting access to its titles in that way. Like, it's such a short-sighted approach to it, isn't it? It's a shame.
Yeah,
but
and like, oh
no, sorry, go for it.
I was just gonna say, there's still games coming out for the PS Vita.
Yeah. It's
I shut it down. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's I hope that people in the industry will see Microsoft kind of leading by example and will be moved to follow in that example. And, you know, even again, if it's for reasons as cynical as like, oh, Microsoft made a lot of money from doing this, so we like money as well. Let's do it also. Like, you know what? If it gets the same results, then do it for whatever reasons you guys want. Exactly. But yeah, that concludes the news section and brings us on to our main topic for this episode, which is the dreaded... Let's try that again. It is the dreaded, the horrible backlog. I mean, I say horrible. Like, it's... in one sense, it's kind of good to know that I always have any game to play that I might have, but also there are so many, and it weighs on my mind and on my shoulders. I don't know if I will ever get through all of these games. It feels like the modern version of like trying to read every work of literature in the world, and it's just very hard, if not impossible. But what about you, Ben? What's in your backlog, and why the heck haven't you gotten around to them yet?
So I kind of have two backlogs, as it were. I have the backlog of guilt, which is I've bought this game and I hate myself for doing that. Or the backlog of I can't remember buying it, or I have it on Game Pass, or I just know I have to play this even if I haven't bought it yet. And the backlog of guilt is the one I hate so much, because I have about 200 something games. I'm just a big idiot. And I'd say about 40 of them. Yeah, about 40 of them I've never played, which is really bad. And like, I do love the fact that they're there, because like the other day, probably a month ago, I dipped into this game that I bought ages ago. I probably bought it 2 years ago, called Wolverblade, which is basically like a brawler, like a Streets of Rage, but it's with Vikings, and it's really cool. And I jumped into that because I was like, I just don't know what to play. And like, I talked about Katamari Damacy before. I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
if it was with you on. Yeah.
yeah. I remember.
That's easily one of my favorite games ever now. I didn't play that for a year, and at the time I was thinking about it. And the thing is, a year and a half later, I wouldn't have bought it. So there are benefits to that kind of spending habit, but also I could definitely do with a bit more money. So I should probably stop doing it.
Yeah. Who really needs money? Who needs to pay bills? What is rent?
I
We
mean,
just don't know.
what's money? What's money for? Spending it, I guess.
Money's all imaginary anyway. It's fine.
Exactly.
But yeah, like I'm in much the same boat. I'm a big proponent of the humble bundles. If you're familiar with those, where every month they have a selection of games, and nowadays plenty of other stuff as well, like comics and ebooks and all sorts of other stuff. And you can pay whatever you want, and there are a couple of different tiers for it. And if you pay the most, then you get everything, and if you pay less than the most, then you get some of it. And yeah, I've been a big proponent of those for many years now, and I love them, and I will continue to be. But it does mean that, much like you, I have this, like these again, kind of two separate backlogs, where there's the things that I've kind of consciously bought, and I've been like, oh, that is a game that I want to play, and it's there somewhere, and I'll get around to it, I promise, someday, maybe, whatever. And then there's the other stuff that's like, I got this bundle because there are a few titles in it that I really wanted, and then there's all this other stuff that came with it as well, which, like, I don't know if it's good or bad. And you know, it's not really fair for me to guess without playing them, but I will never get around to playing them. I realized when I was taking a few notes for this podcast episode, I have over 700 games in my Steam library, and just holy shit. Where did they all come from? What even are all of them? How on earth am I going to get through all of them? Or any of them? Because games are still coming out now. But yeah, like it's very much a kind of double-edged sword, isn't it? Because as you just said, like, if you find yourself not sure exactly what you want to play, and you find this game that maybe you didn't even remember that you'd bought, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll check it out, and you could have a really good time with it. Like, great, that's a good, fun game, and I'm glad that I played it. And you know, this whole thing, having all of these games in the backlog, means that statistically there are probably some pretty good ones in there that you just need to dig through and find and have a wonderful and great time with. But it can definitely all be kind of overwhelming, and things definitely fall through the cracks, which is that the guilt backlog that you mentioned. Like I recently have been playing through the Batman Arkham games again, and I played through Asylum and City on the Xbox 360 years ago. Never got around to Origins or Arkham Knight. But I recently picked up Arkham Knight on sale and decided to get the first two as well and just play through the whole trilogy. I haven't done Origins yet, but I'm in Arkham Knight, and I'm having a great time with it, and it's fun and weird and Batman. But the game came out in 2015 or something. It's like years ago, and there are games from before that and games since then that are also sitting in my library that I have every intention of getting around to. I picked up Death Stranding on sale the other day, and I promised Norman Reedus I will play the game. And someday, if Norman Reedus came around to my house and made me play the game, then that's probably the only way that I could definitely say that I will get around to playing Death Stranding. But they just keep piling up.
Yeah, it's interesting because on Batman Arkham Knight, that game still looks amazing, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
that is one good-looking game.
Pretty game.
like that's in my backlog technically. I played 4 hours of it and dropped it, and I've not gone back to it. So I would love to finish that. I love the Arkham games. I think with my Switch backlog, it's like I have a bit of a sponge of a brain. So I just like, I remember everything that's recommended on a podcast, anything that friends recommend to me, anything on Twitter. And so like, I kind of curate a really carefully curate a wish list on there, which is the worst thing to do because you then have a list of any game that you've ever thought about, and you'll see it on sale and you'll think, I don't quite remember why I put this in there, but there must have been a good reason, and it's 70% off, so I'll buy it. But so yeah, because I have that, like I do feel like my Switch catalog should all be good games, but it's just the fact that my attitude with games is so rubbish. I just set a rule that I wouldn't buy any new like full priced games, because I bought Valhalla, played 30 hours of it, not it was Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yeah,
played 30 hours of it, not finished it. I'm playing through Yakuza. Still playing Katamari Damacy. I'm playing some Italian. I play a bit of FIFA every now and then. I haven't touched Valhalla in like 2 months, and all these other games are just games I already had. Like, so I had to set that rule because I'm such a comfort food gamer. Like, to me, even though I've only played one Yakuza game, it's like comfort food to me now, because you play like 10 hours of that game, you played all of that game. Like, you just want to see the story. The game does the same thing, but you just want to see the story. It's amazing. And I always go back to that. Like Civ 6 is the worst for me. I've probably got like 1,200, 1,300 hours in that game. And I still play it, like probably one game a week at the moment because I'm good. But it used to be like a game like every day, and I'd pick it up at intervals in the day and just get through it. And it's like
a real time sink. Yeah.
That's not how you make yourself a good games journalist. You don't just keep playing Civ, let me tell you.
I have the same thing, honestly. My comfort food games, there's Skyrim. I always go back to Skyrim, and since I started playing it on PC, I have dabbled in the modding community as well, which is just like, I mean, Skyrim is already an enormous game, just vanilla, but you start factoring mods into it, and it's just like you could spend the rest of your life playing this one game with various mods, and you'll not finish it.
Yeah,
it's crazy. My other one I have is Stardew Valley, which I find a weird combination of relaxing and just like not quite stressful, but the fact that there's always like the ticking clock over the course of the game always kind of, one, it puts a bit of pressure on me to like try and get a lot of stuff done each day, and then it also sets me up for when I get to the end of each day, it's like, oh, I didn't quite do everything that I wanted to do. I'll just play one more day. Oh, maybe just one more day. No, maybe just one more. And that's why it's been 7 hours.
That's why I couldn't get on with Stardew Valley.
Oh yeah,
like I played probably 30 hours of that game. I definitely liked it, but that timer like engaged something in me that I didn't want it to, because I love farming sim games, but I want them to be really chill. I want them to be like Animal Crossing, like super chill. Just do what you want.
Yeah.
And then that game, I was like, I've got to fit everything into this set amount of time.
Yeah.
And then you find other things to do, and you're like, well, this isn't farming. What's going on? And I loved
Why am I fighting monsters in a mine? How did this happen?
I loved it, but I was like, I have to turn this off, because this thing in my head is like, there's a conflict here, and if I go one way, I'm going to get very addicted, because the system is there to like, it can catch you.
Yeah. It's like it's similar in a way to games like Skyrim, where they're like Stardew Valley obviously isn't as kind of open world as something like Skyrim is, but like they're both designed in the way that there's a lot of stuff to do, and there's no real kind of end point. You can just keep doing stuff forever. And as you say, like that can potentially breed some unhealthy behaviors if not nipped in the bud.
I mean, it's better than what I do with Civ, though. What I do with Civ is play the same digital board game over and over again.
But
like, don't even play it on the hardest difficulty. I play it two levels down. I'm not even that good at it.
Meta, don't even know. Oh dear. Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I feel like we have. This might run the risk of sounding a little wanky, but like of games journalists, we I feel like we have a somewhat unique relationship with the backlog, because there's the stuff that we have to or want to play like for work versus the stuff that we want to play just for ourselves and to have fun and stuff. And I don't know about you, but I often find it's sometimes a little difficult to kind of make sure to keep those two separate and make sure that you kind of doing enough for both sides of that coin, because obviously like you need to do the stuff for work so that you can do the work, but it's also really important to have this as a hobby as well, because it's fun and it's enjoyable and it's something that's been with us for like many years, and I wouldn't want it to get to the point where it starts becoming a chore and you start to dread a big new 60-hour plus game coming out because like, oh god, I'm gonna have to play through all of it in a week and it's gonna be horrible and stressful and the worst. Do you find that?
Yeah, so I have this I have this thing because I review quite a few Switch games for KeenGamer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was playing Monster Hunter like crazy. I was another comfort food game, Monster Hunter games for me, which I just love. My game of the year right now is probably Monster Hunter Rise. I just adore it. I haven't played it in a week because I just had to. I was like, I have to stop because I got The Longing for Switch, which is a little indie game where you have to wait 400 days, but real 400 days.
Oh.
Or you can, and reviewing that in a week was funny.
Yeah,
the game technically takes 400 days.
Yeah,
but my review does it talks about that. I'm not pretending to have finished it. Yeah, and then after that, I got these Atelier games. I got an Atelier Mystery Deluxe Trilogy pack or something, which is just some JRPGs which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 games in that pack, and they're each 50 hours long.
Jesus.
So I was like, just stop playing Monster Hunter. I'm allowing myself Yakuza before bed because that to me is like watching a TV show. I just play a couple of hours of Yakuza.
Like a warm glass of milk before bed, except it's
yeah, exactly.
Yakuza.
Yeah, except there's lots of money flying out of people's suit jackets and blood. But yeah. I had to turn around and say, there's a lot to do right now. Keep playing. And I don't mind it because I do obviously love playing games, but you do play them in a different way. And I am playing these games with a kind of, I have to feel like I'm switched on for a lot of it. Whereas when I play Monster Hunter, I just switch off and I just play Monster Hunter. I'm just thinking about the game. Whereas at the moment playing Atelier Sophie, I am writing notes, and I don't write that many notes compared to other people, but I occasionally write notes, but I'm mostly just thinking and switching on and trying to percolate and create some sort of argument that's my own and kind of drills down into what I think about this thing. And it just changes like the whole experience of playing a game. And it's not necessarily better or worse. It's just, it's not really how you want to play a game all the time. And it's not how you want to play a game like before bed or a game like you love. I can't imagine writing a guide for Monster Hunter would probably, and if it was an in-depth guide, it would like kind of ruin my enjoyment of the thing.
Yeah. Like there are loads of people out there who love getting really stuck into the metagaming aspect of a lot of games like Monster Hunter and things, like really want to know everything about everything. And there are people who cater to those sorts of desires as well, and as you say, like write guides for it. But I think you're right, like it's very difficult once you kind of start getting used to being in that frame of mind to switch it off. I find it a lot when like when I'm watching films and TV and stuff as well. Like I love reading and writing about like tropes in TV and film and games and stuff like that. And when you become quite familiar with them, you start to kind of pick them out and kind of anticipate plot beats and stuff before they come up. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily lessen the experience for me, but I do find myself sometimes wishing that I could just like consciously switch that bit off and just kind of, let it wash over me a bit and not be overthinking and anticipating everything that's going on and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I used to feel like I had to like finish everything though. Not obviously if I review something, unless it's meant to take 400 days, I'm going to finish it. But I feel like in the last few years, I kind of enjoyed it or experienced it. Like, this isn't a game, but I read the book Gravity's Rainbow, which is like 800 pages or something.
Oh yeah.
And I read 700 pages of it, and I remember being at the end and just thought, I loved the first 700 pages, but I'm not enjoying this right now. And I've just not gone back to it, and I don't really mind that I'm not reading those last 100 pages. And I think that mindset shift, like with a book, it's harder to not finish it because, these things like are physical things that you can see the end of. Yeah. But I think that mindset shift is quite healthy. Like with Valhalla, I feel it like preying down on me like the backlog stuff does. And I think like if I did, I would really struggle to do anything because, you still have to review games. And after you've done playing the game, you have to sit down and write it. And like,
yeah,
I realize that I probably spend like 3 hours a day writing, 4 hours a day writing because I do another part-time job. So it's like fitting in any time to play games is kind of actually difficult. I just mostly do it on the weekends, and that's when I do the big things. But if I felt obliged to finish everything, then I would like suffocate.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, I'm struggling with that a bit myself because I also feel this. Like I've always been a bit of a completionist and like just wanting to be able to say like I have literally done everything, and that's fine. I can set it aside, put it back on the shelf, and feel good and happy that it's done. And I've been doing that a bit with the Arkham games as I've been playing through them. But towards the end of Arkham City, I did find myself I was kind of growing a bit impatient with myself because I was like, I need to do this, and this to feel like I've completed it. But like I had played through it, but by that point I'd played through the game twice because I did it on New Game Plus as well, and it was fun still. Like the New Game Plus added a lot of challenge and stuff, and it was rewarding in many ways. But then there were all of the like combat and predator challenges and stuff, and it just felt like endless extra little bits that I, for some reason, felt obliged to do rather than moving on to Arkham Knight. And eventually, I was just like, I have to stop. I have to remember that I'm playing these games for enjoyment and not for completion, and not for it to feel like work or anything like that.
Yeah. And also like a new completionist run, you can then get am I doing this instead of playing a different game? Because I recently 100%ed every Assassin's Creed game apart from Unity because I just really enjoy the way they feel. But I went back to Rogue and Black Flag on Switch to do it there as well for some reason because I'm an idiot, as I say all the time. And I sat there and I 100%ed these two games on Switch, 45 hours to 60 hours, I'm not sure. And it's just like, I remember playing it and thinking, what am I doing? Like, the only time I really ever 100% a game and don't feel guilty is with Nintendo. Like, I'll replay Super Mario Galaxy and Odyssey until I die. And I've played Zelda for Breath of the Wild for probably 300 hours, 400 hours. I adore that game. Like, I don't ever feel bad about that, though, because the pure fun of the thing is why I'm there. So if that ever wasn't there, I wouldn't be. It's like can feel a bit checklisty, or you've made some sort of goal in your head. It feels like it feels quite. You get to a point where you're just like, this is all pointless, isn't it? And you just want to just do something else.
That's never a good sign if you find yourself just staring morosely out the window and going, this is all a bit pointless, isn't it? But no, yeah, I agree with you about Nintendo games. Like I have also, uh, as you 100%ed a lot of those games like Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and stuff, and they're just really fun. I don't know if it's just like that special Nintendo sauce, or if like it's something to do with the fact that they don't have like conventional achievements or anything. Maybe that's part of it as well. Uh, so it might feel more like you're doing it for yourself rather than for some sort of external gratification. Maybe that can be a
I
subject
think
for a future podcast episode. But no, yeah,
exactly.
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think like Nintendo aren't the only games that do this. Like I think
Mm.
something like Celeste does it as well.
Oh yeah,
Or like from what I've heard, Sunset Overdrive probably does it. When it feels good to do like move around and do actions just on its own, then anything you put on top of the game, like your achievements, your goals, like the things you want to find and do, and all the other like the dressing to it, is going to be fun no matter whether you've done anything's fun. And like Nintendo were just known for that being like the first thing they do. Whereas in
yeah,
Assassin's Creed, parkour in Assassin's Creed, especially nowadays, isn't that much fun. You just press a button, push forward, and it happens.
mm.
And it's fun to traverse a world and be involved in it. But that's because of the dressing. That's because of everything put on top, and because on the map it's like you should go here to find something
Yeah,
cool. Whereas like in Zelda, like rolling a ball down a hill to kill a Bobocline is just fun. And you don't have to need to kill that Bobocline, or like just gliding in Zelda. It's just fun.
yeah,
And you can drop, and then you can like play with the physics, and then Mario, like just jumping is fun. And
yeah,
that's like the key thing I think there. And that's that just completely at peace with the fact that I've already played Odyssey
yeah.
way too many times. I don't mind. I started it again recently, and I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. Ah, that's a great game. Do you have
Very good game.
any final words of advice for any gamers out there struggling with their backlog or the idea of their backlog?
Ignore the wish lists on console store platforms, because I started putting together one for the Xbox, that the new Xbox I got, and it's so bad. Every time I see, like, I saw Cyberpunk was on sale. I don't need to play Cyberpunk right now. I've got way too many other games, and Cyberpunk's not even properly fixed. And I was like, I should buy it. It's £10 off. When's that ever going to happen again? I was just like, what a stupid thing to think. It's just going to happen more and more.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean,
So just
there's
play.
like,
If you care about it that much, you're going to remember.
yeah, yeah, like it's totally understandable that there's a social pressure of sorts to be part of the discussion about every new game that comes out, and to be really interested in it and really passionate about it. But you got to remember that you're playing games for fun and to have fun, not out of obligation, not to have something to stand around the virtual water cooler and talk about. Like there are so many games out now that like there will always be something to talk about. And even if you don't get to play something like Cyberpunk for a year or more after its release, you can check out reputable gaming media sites like KeenGamer.com to see what your opinions should be, and how to share them with your
But
friends.
also, you'll probably have more fun if you play Cyberpunk a year later than if you play it. Like, obviously you will, because it's being
Yeah,
fixed. So
yeah,
like, there's often reasons to wait, get games on sale, and not feel obliged to be part of everything.
yeah.
Although I also say that knowing that I do that. So
Do as we say, not as we do. I think that's the
yeah,
moral of the story.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
100%.
I think that about wraps it up for today's episode. I hope you've all had a lovely time listening to our dulcet tones. We will be back in a week's time on another Thursday. In fact, every Thursday, you'll be able to catch the King Gamer podcast over on KeenGamer.com. And sometimes it'll be me, sometimes it'll be Ben, sometimes other people will be here as well. But for today, it's been me and it's been Ben. Thank you very much, Ben, for your time and your wisdom. Hope you've had a nice time. Nope. Okay.
Oh, I didn't hear that. What did you say?
Sorry, I think the internet froze a little. Thank you very much, Ben, for being on the episode. I
Oh,
hope you
yeah.
had a lovely time.
Oh, yeah, of course I have.
Yeah,
Just dead.
thank you all. It's dead. No, had a terrible time. Blink, 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 blink twice for no. Thank you all for tuning in so much, and we will see you. We will see you in another week's time for another episode of the KeenGamer podcast. Take care, all. Bye bye.
Goodbye.